I'm Bob Michaels, and I'm the CEO of ZeeVee. I've been in this position for, I guess, eight, 9 years now. Prior to that, I was CEO of Magenta Research, another name in the industry, and so I've been in the industry now for a total of about 12 or 13 years. I believe that the AV industry is in somewhat of a unique position. Right? There's a transition in the world where video, we've seen videos everywhere, and video is becoming more and more prevalent everywhere that you see. And this is something that is becoming somewhat of a requirement, right? If you go somewhere and you go into a shop or a restaurant or something and there's not a video board there, or there's not something hitting you in the face, you start to question, should I be shopping here? Should I be here? They're not quite modern, right? So it's something that we want and anticipate seeing. If I go back pre-pandemic, we were starting to see kind of a seismic shift in the industry. We've been talking about a transition to AV over IP forever. And I look at it and say, end of 2019, the very, very beginning of 2020, we were finally starting to see some traction of IP and thinking quite positive about where this was going to lead us in terms of growth as an industry, right? And then COVID comes crashing in and everything comes pretty much to a screeching halt. Now, if we looked at, and it's really started about mid-2021, is people started getting access to buildings again. They were comfortable going into buildings again. And the conversation sort of continued from the end of 2019 into the shift into AV over IP. Existing technology is still there and still being used, and it should be. If there's existing infrastructure, keep it. But we've seen this dramatic shift, and if we look at it today and say, okay, the world has challenges to it, but in my opinion, I think we can be kind of secluded from that because of the industry that we're in, this technology industry, where people are still geared up to spend money and want to get out in front of customers. And how better are you going to do that than constantly being in front of their face, frankly, with video? Perhaps giant companies might struggle some, right, because they've got bigger challenges in front of them, just in terms of employees, number of employees, expenses, and so on. But we as an industry, we learned a tremendous amount during COVID, how to manage our cash better, because we had to, because there was no access to buildings. You couldn't generate revenue, right? So you had to manage it. Now things are open and we are generating revenue, and there is this tremendous pent-up demand to get these installations completed, right? Okay, but then you throw in challenges as supply chain issues, pricing, et cetera, so on. We're learning how to face those. But I look at the industry and say there's no place but up for us. Recession, non-recession, global conflict, whatever it might be, areas of the world are ripe for solid, good business growth. It's costing the industry more. We've tried to limit, as a company, price increases, but we've had to have some because you just have to keep up. In terms of employees, we have been trying to hire for the past 5 or 6 months, and it is difficult. Geographically, I think it depends upon where you are, how difficult it's going to be for you. We happen to be in kind of a technology hub area outside of Boston, right? And startups are attracting a large number of younger people, if we're allowed to even say that, right? Younger people, because they have money. In many cases, it's other people's money. Okay, we don't have other people's money; we have our money, and so it's been a challenge to attract younger people. Honestly, it hasn't been that much of a challenge to attract, skilled workers, of course, but seasoned industry professionals. I've been in this industry for 12 or 13 years. I didn't know anything about it prior. But since coming into it, I find this much, much more exciting than, say, the industry I spent a lot of my career in, semiconductors. This is a forward-looking industry. This is an industry that's constantly changing almost on a daily basis. New technologies coming in, new ways of doing things, new inventions, right? This is necessary. So this, to me, if I was and I'm not a technology person myself, an engineer, I would look to this industry as somewhere where I could make a significant contribution because of the pace of change, right? Because if I'm an intelligent engineer and I have some skill, I can make a difference in companies. And for the most part, our industry is small to medium enterprises. Okay, there's a couple of big giants and they certainly contribute and certainly lead. But the majority of companies are small, where people coming in can make a significant impact, primarily on the technical side, but also if you're on the business side of things or the financial side of things. There has been some consolidation over the past couple of years. We've seen this, but it's not necessarily by the behemoths, right? Some of them have a not invented here syndrome, where the technology emanates from one place in the universe, and they believe in that, and so they're not out looking for acquisitions. I think where the acquisition interest comes from are potentially companies outside the industry who see it as exciting, or maybe have a toehold in the industry, but say, wow, this is significant, right? And I want to participate in this, yet I don't have the product range, I don't have the market knowledge, I don't have the brand, right, where I can make an impact. And if I can pick up, for lack of a better description, something in the sector where I'm interested in or forward-looking, I can have an immediate impact and start to grow from there. So I think that M&A activity will continue. It might not be at the pace that it has been over the past year or so, but certainly it will continue. It's an attractive industry. I really like the look of LED screens. Okay, they provide for marvelous images. They're eliminating a lot of smaller displays, TVs, right? The elimination of video walls and putting everything on one canvas is very, very attractive to us. Okay, again, people want. I think one thing people have learned, they've learned many things over COVID. Over COVID, people have learned what good video looks like, because we've all been stuck in front of these small screens or laptops, right? And at the mercy of the internet provider to our homes primarily, right? Which is probably not good most of the time. And when we get out, we don't want to deal with that anymore. When I go out and I see a screen, I want it to be crystal clear to me, right? And I want to see that people have pride in what they're showing, and these LED screens provide that opportunity. Again, you must have the ability to bring good video to those screens, because it can't do all the work, okay? But I certainly see that as very, very exciting as we move into the future. I think for the most part, sorry to say, manufacturers haven't taken this tremendous interest in the environment. We're starting to see more and more of it. I would say that it's being driven by the end user. It's not being driven by the integrators. It's being driven by end users who need to comply with local laws or national laws in order to cut down consumption of power. And as we're going forward, we're seeing more and more manufacturers utilizing PoE, which is great, okay, because it reduces power consumption. We're seeing, not just to talk about our company, but we're using less packaging material. We're using more recycled packaging material, reusable packaging material, and trying to bring down our box size somewhat, so we use less steel, less metal, less plastic, less everything, as much as we can. So I think this is a trend that will continue. I also think it would be a trend that would be driven by new blood of younger talent into our industry. I see my own children, right? Elimination of waste is very, very high on their priority list. right? Paper towels, no matter what it will be. And, new generations drive this type of mental change, because I'm not so sure that those of us who have been here for a long time are really that compelled to do, frankly, all that much, unfortunately. I think a lot of it right now, because we've been cooped up for the past couple of years, I know for us, a lot of conversations, frankly, catching up, right? Because we've had conversations over Zoom or Teams, and after a while, they just become so sterile and commonplace that you're really not speaking with someone. You're speaking at a screen or speaking at a face. And for example, in Barcelona or here, having much more, what I would consider intimate conversations with people about how are you doing? How is your family? How have you held up? Is everybody healthy? What are you looking at for the future? Have you kind of reorganized your thoughts on where you want to be and where you want to go? And 2 years from now or 5 years from now, how are those types of conversations? There's a lot of conversations about what's going on in the world, of course, and we're all concerned about that. But for me, it's been much more on a personal basis of seeing people that I haven't seen, whose company that I enjoy, and who I'm truly interested in hearing about what has changed in their lives. I'm feeling great. I'm super happy to be out, all right, and not cooped up inside my home office, getting back into the office, but mostly getting back to being in the field. Typically, I spend at least 50% of my time in front of customers. It's a way that I better understand what their needs are in the field. It gives me the opportunity to listen, so that I can go back to our people in the factory and try to have an honest conversation about what people that differentiate between what people want and what people actually spend some money on, right? Because they're different there. And also too, trying to kind of filter out what the salespeople are telling you, right? Because of the conversation, if I only had this and I only had that and you have to filter that out. And I find the best way for me, at least, has getting in front of customers and having them tell me what they need and what's important to them.